After my husband passed away, I bought a new car to start fresh. The very next day, my son appeared at my door and snatched the keys from my hand. "You won't be needing this anymore," he said, his voice carrying a coldness I'd never heard before. "Tomorrow morning, I'm leaving with my wife's family on a trip," he continued. "I'll drop you at a nursing home on the way there." I stood frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. My own child, the boy I had carried, nurtured, and raised, was telling me I no longer had the right to control my own existence. As he drove away in my car, speeding down the highway with his wife beside him, I pulled out my phone and typed a simple text message. Just 3 words that would change everything. "Check the glove compartment." What he discovered inside made him slam on the brakes so hard the tires screeched. In that moment, he realized he had made the gravest mistake of his entire life. But to understand why I did what I did, you need to hear the whole story from the beginning. My name is Edith, and I'm 65 years old. Until 3 months ago, I was married to my soulmate. We shared 40 years together, 40 years filled with laughter, struggles, and the beautiful work of building a family. My husband was a good man, the hard-working kind that seems rare these days. When he died, my world stopped turning. The house transformed into a museum of memories. Every corner whispered his name. His coffee mug sat on the kitchen table exactly where he'd left it. His favorite armchair still bore the impression of his body. The scent of his cologne lingered in the bathroom. And there I was, suspended in the center of that deafening silence, wondering how I would fill the remaining days of my life. Those first few days after his death were unbearable. I couldn't force myself out of bed. Food held no appeal. I avoided everyone. But one morning, while staring at a photograph of the 2 of us on the beach, both of us grinning, radiating life, I heard his voice as clearly as if he were standing behind me. "Edith," he used to say, "as long as there's breath in your lungs, there's a reason to keep moving forward. Don't sit around waiting for life to pass you by. Get out there and live it." He was right. He always was. So I made a decision that morning. I would start over. I refused to remain imprisoned in this house, living among ghosts and fading memories. I would honor his memory by truly living again. And to do that, I needed mobility. I needed independence. I needed a car. Throughout our marriage, we'd always shared the same aging vehicle, a gray sedan my husband kept running through sheer ingenuity and patience. But that car died with him. It broke down a week after the funeral, and the mechanic delivered the harsh verdict. Repairing it would cost more than buying a replacement. So, with the life insurance money and the savings we'd carefully accumulated together, I decided to purchase a new car. Nothing extravagant or flashy, just something reliable, something that was mine alone, something that represented this new chapter unfolding before me. I visited the dealership on a Tuesday morning. The salesman, a kind young man named Paul, showed me several options. Then I saw it, a silver sedan gleaming under the showroom lights. It was perfect, compact, easy to handle, equipped with all the safety features I needed. I slid into the driver's seat and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Paul patiently explained everything: the braking system, the airbags, the warranty coverage. When he quoted the price at $800 to $500, I knew I could afford it. This money was mine. I had earned it through years of labor and sacrifice, with every penny my husband and I had saved while planning for our future. A future he would never see, but one I was determined to live. I signed the papers that same day. The car was registered in my name alone, Edith Miller, sole owner. When I drove out of the dealership in my new car, breathing in the scent of fresh upholstery and listening to the engine purr softly, tears streamed down my face. They were tears of both joy and sorrow. Joy because I was stepping forward. Sorrow because my husband wasn't there to witness it. But as I drove home with the afternoon sun streaming through the windshield, I knew he would be proud of me. This was exactly what he would have wanted. I parked the car in the driveway and sat there for a moment, just looking at it. It was beautiful. It was mine. It was my new beginning. I took the keys inside and placed them on the kitchen table. Then I called my son Matthew to share the news. I wanted to celebrate this moment with him. I wanted him to know his mother was okay, that she was being strong, that she was honoring his father's memory in the best possible way. Matthew didn't answer. I left a voicemail. "Son, I bought a new car today. I'm so excited about it. Come by when you can to see it. I love you. I hung up feeling happy, hoping he would share my excitement, hoping he would understand how meaningful this was to me. I had no idea that the next day would change my life forever. I had no idea my own son was about to betray me in the most devastating way possible. The following day, I woke early. The sun was just beginning to rise, and I was already in the kitchen brewing coffee. I had plans for the day, grocery shopping, then a visit to my friend Rachel's house to show her the car, and perhaps, if I felt up to it, a drive to the cemetery to tell my husband all about it. Yes, I know it sounds strange to talk to someone who's gone, but it made me feel connected to him. It eased the loneliness. I was finishing my second cup of coffee when I heard a car pull up outside. I looked through the window and saw Matthew's vehicle. My heart leaped with joy. He had come. He got to my message and had come to see my new car, to share this special moment. I smiled and hurried to the door. But when I opened it, that smile froze on my face. Matthew wasn't alone. Beside him stood Vanessa, his wife. Neither of them was smiling. Something in their expressions, in the way they looked at me, sent a chill through my body. I felt like a problem they needed to solve. "Hello, son," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Vanessa, what a nice surprise seeing you so early. Come in. I just made coffee." Matthew didn't even acknowledge my greeting. He walked straight into the house, his footsteps purposeful, heading directly for the kitchen. Vanessa followed, casting me a look I couldn't quite interpret. I closed the door and trailed behind them, feeling the joy from moments before transform into an uneasy knot in my stomach. Something was wrong. In the kitchen, Matthew stopped in front of the table, staring at my new car keys. He picked them up, weighing them in his palm as if assessing their value. "Mom," he finally said, still not meeting my eyes. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms, trying to ignore the alarm bell starting to ring in my head. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" He exchanged a look with Vanessa. She nodded slightly, as if granting him permission to continue. Then Matthew spoke. "Mom, I heard you bought a car." "A new car?" "Yes," I replied, my voice more excited than it probably should have been. "That's exactly why I called you yesterday. I wanted you to see it. It's beautiful, Matthew, and it makes me feel so free. So?" "You don't need it," he interrupted. His words fell like stones onto the kitchen floor. I fell silent, not comprehending. "What?" I whispered. Matthew finally looked into my eyes. "You don't need a car, Mom. Not at your age. You don't drive as well as you used to. It's dangerous. Besides, it's an unnecessary expense. The maintenance, the insurance, the gas. What's the point?" I felt as though I'd been slapped across the face. "Matthew, I drive perfectly well. My license is valid. I pass all the required tests. And besides, it's my money, my decision." He shook his head as if addressing a stubborn child. "Mom, that's not the point. The point is being practical. Look, Vanessa and I have been discussing this. Tomorrow we're leaving on a trip with her parents, a family vacation we've been planning for months. Our car is having problems. Yours is brand new. It's perfect for the trip." "Wait," I said, raising my hand. "Are you telling me you came here to ask to borrow my car?" Matthew let out a short, humorless laugh. "I didn't come to ask you anything, Mom. I came to tell you I'm taking it." Before I could process what was happening, before I could react, he closed his fist around the keys. "No!" I shouted. "Matthew, those are my keys. That's my car." But he was already walking toward the door. Vanessa followed, completely ignoring me. "Matthew, stop. You can't do this. Give me back my keys." He paused in the doorway and turned to look at me. What I saw in his eyes shattered my heart. There was no love there, no respect, just impatience and something that looked disturbingly like contempt. "Mom, enough with the drama," he said in a voice so cold it didn't sound like my son's. "You don't need this car. You don't need any of this. You're living alone in this huge house, clinging to memories. It's not healthy." "What are you saying?" I whispered, my voice barely escaping my throat. "Vanessa and I have been talking," Matthew continued, and we think it would be best if you considered moving somewhere more appropriate. A nursing home. There are excellent facilities in the city. You'd be taken care of. You'd have company. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. When we return from the trip, we can visit some together. In fact, I can drop you off at one on the way." The world stopped spinning. My son's words echoed in my ears, but I couldn't believe them. A nursing home. He was telling me to go to a nursing home, to abandon my house, my memories, my life, to become a burden others had to manage. "Matthew," I said, my voice trembling, "I don't need a nursing home. I'm perfectly fine here. This is my house." He sighed as if my resistance was merely another inconvenience. "Mom, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. We're taking the car. We'll be gone for a week. When we return, we'll discuss your situation calmly." And with that, he walked out of the house. Vanessa followed without uttering a single word. I ran after them. "Matthew, no. Please, that car is mine. I bought it with my own money. You can't just take it." But he was already opening the door of my new car, my silver car, my symbol of freedom. "Matthew, I'm begging you." I screamed. Tears began rolling down my cheeks. "Don't do this to me. I'm your mother." He paused for 1 second. For just 1 second, I thought he might reconsider, that he might remember who I was, that he might remember everything I had done for him. But then he got in the car, started the engine, and drove away. He simply left, with Vanessa in the passenger seat, with my keys, with my car, with my dignity. I stood there in the driveway, watching the silver car disappear down the street. Tears flowed freely now. My body shook. I couldn't believe what had just happened. My own son had stolen from me. He had humiliated me. He had told me I was worthless. I stumbled back into the house. I closed the door and collapsed onto the sofa. There, in the silent living room filled with memories of a life that no longer existed, I cried. I cried for the car. I cried for the betrayal. But mostly, I cried for the son I had just lost. I don't know how long I sat on that sofa crying. Time lost all meaning. The only thing I felt was a profound ache in my chest, as if something inside me had shattered irreparably. Maybe it had. Maybe the image I held of my son, the trust, the unconditional love a mother always carries for her children, maybe all of that had broken. But then, in the midst of that emotional darkness, something shifted. I stopped crying. I wiped the tears away with the back of my hand, and I felt something different growing in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't despair. It was rage, a cold, calculating rage that began replacing the pain. Because as I sat there, I remembered something crucial, something Matthew didn't know, something that would change everything. I was not a foolish woman. I had lived 65 years. I had raised a son practically single-handedly while my husband worked double shifts. I had managed a household, a budget, an entire life. Through all those years, I had learned something fundamental. You always need to be prepared for the worst. You always need a backup plan. When I bought that car, I hadn't simply signed the papers and driven home happy. No, I had been careful. I had been intelligent. Because even though I wanted to believe my son was a good man, even though I wanted to think he would never hurt me, I had noticed signs, small signs I had ignored because it was easier not to see them. The way Vanessa surveyed my house, calculating its worth. The way Matthew inquired about his father's life insurance, about my savings, about my plans. Casual comments that, in hindsight, didn't seem casual at all. So after purchasing the car, I did something else. Something that seemed like an overreaction at the time, almost paranoid. But now I was grateful I had done it. I visited Robert. Robert had been my husband's friend for 30 years. He was a lawyer, an excellent lawyer. When I told him I had bought a new car and had certain concerns about my son, he didn't judge me. He didn't tell me I was being paranoid. He simply listened. Edith. He told me that day in his office, sitting behind his dark wood desk, if you have doubts, it's better to be prepared. Prevention isn't mistrust, it's intelligence. And so he helped me. He helped me prepare documents. Legal documents that protected my interests, documents that made crystal clear who owned that car, documents that established definitive consequences for anyone who tried to take what was mine. Robert prepared a letter, a notarized letter bearing his official seal and signature, carrying legal weight. That letter explained everything. That the car was registered solely in my name, that any person who took it without my explicit written permission would be committing a crime, grand theft auto, and that I, as the owner, had every right to press criminal charges. Furthermore, Robert attached certified copies of the car's title, the vehicle registration, and my valid driver's license, all proving I was completely capable and legally entitled to own and operate that vehicle. But that wasn't everything. Robert also prepared another document, one that pained me to sign, but I knew was necessary, a modification to my will. In the original will, which I had created years ago with my husband, Matthew was a primary heir. The house, the savings, everything was designated to go to him upon my death. But after observing those warning signs, after feeling that persistent unease in my stomach every time Vanessa asked about money, I decided to make a change, a radical change. In the new will, I removed Matthew completely. Not as punishment, I explained to Robert, but as protection. If something happened to me, I didn't want Vanessa and him profiting from my death. I wanted my assets to benefit charities, organizations helping the elderly, animal shelters, places that would actually do something meaningful with that money. Robert included a copy of that new will in the packet of documents. Finally, we prepared one more thing, a sworn affidavit signed by me and notarized by Robert, where I clearly stated that I was in full command of my mental faculties, that I was not being coerced or manipulated, and that any attempt to declare me incompetent or force me into a nursing home against my will would be considered elder abuse and would be fought legally. Robert also attached the result of a recent medical examination proving I was in perfect health, both physically and mentally. That entire packet of documents, that complete legal arsenal, I placed in a manila envelope, and that envelope I secured in the glove compartment of my new car just one day before Matthew came to steal it from me. At that moment, when I placed it there, part of me hoped I would never need to use it. Part of me prayed I was wrong about my son. But another part, the wise part that had learned caution through life's lessons, knew it was a right decision. Now, sitting on my sofa with swollen eyes from crying, I remembered all of this, and a bitter smile appeared on my face. Matthew thought I was a helpless old woman. He thought he could simply take whatever he wanted, and I would do nothing. He thought I was weak, easily manipulated, defeated. But he was very, very wrong. I stood up from the sofa. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I drank it slowly, feeling the cold rage transform into determination. I picked up my cell phone from the table and stared at it for a long moment. I knew Matthew must be on the highway by now, probably heading toward Vanessa's parents' house in another state, several hours away. They were probably laughing, celebrating how easily they had obtained a free new car for their trip. Vanessa was probably telling Matthew how pathetic his mother was, how simple the whole thing had been. I opened the messaging app and searched for Matthew's contact. My fingers trembled slightly on the screen, not from fear, not from sadness, but from anticipation. Because I knew what I was about to do. I knew the effect it would have. Although part of me, the part that was still a mother, felt pain for what was coming, the other part, the part that deserved respect and dignity, knew it was necessary. I typed 3 words. Just 3 short, direct words, loaded with a weight Matthew couldn't yet imagine. Check the glove compartment. That was it. No explanations. No threats. No emotional pleas. Just those 3 words. I pressed send. The message showed as delivered, then as read. I pictured Matthew on the highway, driving my car, hearing the notification sound on his phone. I imagined him glancing at the screen, perhaps with Vanessa asking who it was. I visualized him reading that brief message, confusion spreading across his face. Check the glove compartment. What could his mother possibly mean by that? I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, waiting. My heart beat rapidly but steadily. There was no turning back now. I had cast the first stone. And soon, very soon, Matthew was going to understand that he had completely underestimated his mother. That the woman who had given birth to him, who had raised him with love and sacrifice, was also a woman who knew how to defend herself. A woman who would not allow anyone, not even her own son, to walk all over her. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then my phone vibrated. It was Matthew calling. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. He called again, and again, and again. 5 calls in rapid succession, all ignored, because I wanted him to feel what I had felt, the helplessness, the desperation, the slow, terrible realization that he had lost control of the situation. Finally, he stopped calling. A text message arrived instead. "Mom, what is this? What does this mean? Call me, please." I didn't reply. Another message came through. "Mom, this is a mistake. We can talk about this. Please." I didn't respond to that either. And then the message I had been waiting for arrived. The message confirming he had read everything, that he had seen the documents, that he finally understood the magnitude of what he had done. "Mom, please don't do this. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. We can fix this. Don't call the police. Please." I read those words over and over. I could feel the panic in every letter, the desperation, the fear, although part of me, that maternal instinct that never fully dies, felt a pang of pain seeing my son like this. The other part, the part that had been betrayed and humiliated, felt vindicated, because now he knew. Now he understood that his actions had consequences. I let another 10 minutes pass before replying. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted every second of silence to remind him of what he had done. Finally, I wrote, "Bring the car back to my house." Now, his response was immediate. "I'm 3 hours away. I'm turning around right now. I'll be there as soon as possible. I promise, Mom." I placed the phone on the table and leaned back in my chair. A strained feeling washed over me. It wasn't joy. It couldn't be joy when it involved my own son. But it was something like justice, like vindication. I had spent my entire life being soft, understanding, the perfect mother who always forgave everything. And look where it had gotten me, treated like a burden, like something disposable. I went to my bedroom and looked in the mirror. I saw a 65-year-old woman with gray hair, with wrinkles around her eyes, with hands that had worked hard throughout her life. But I also saw something else. I saw strength. I saw dignity. I saw someone who was not going to surrender. My husband always told me I was stronger than I thought. I wished he could see me now. I wished he could witness his wife standing up for herself. I think he would be proud. I changed my clothes, putting on a dark green dress, one my husband had given me years ago. I combed my hair. I applied a little lipstick. Because if I was going to have this confrontation with my son, I would face it with dignity. I was not going to be the broken woman he had left crying on the sofa. I was going to be the woman who had taken control of her own life. While I waited, I called Robert. I needed him to know what was happening. He answered on the second ring. "Edith," he said in his calm, professional voice. "What can I do for you?" "Robert, it happened. My son took the car. He found the documents. He's on his way back now." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard him sigh. "I'm sorry you were right, Edith. Nobody wants to be right about something like this." "I know," I replied. "But now I need to understand what happens next." Robert explained patiently. Technically, Matthew had committed a crime, grand theft auto. Even though he was my son, even though it was family, that didn't change the legal facts. I had every right to file a police report, but I also had the right not to. The decision was entirely mine. The crucial thing was that now Matthew knew I possessed that power, that I had the tools to hold him accountable. "I want him to come and talk," I told Robert. "But I want you available by phone, just in case." "Of course," he replied. "I'll keep the phone in my hand. Call me anytime you need, Edith." "And Edith," he added before hanging up, "you are a brave woman. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." His words filled me with warmth I hadn't felt all day. "Thank you, Robert. Thank you for everything." I hung up and checked the clock. Matthew had said he was 3 hours away. That meant he would arrive around 5 in the afternoon. It was barely 2 o'clock. I had time. Time to prepare myself mentally. Time to decide exactly what I was going to say. Time to strengthen my resolve. I went to the kitchen and made tea. Not because I wanted it, but because I needed something to do with my hands. Needed to stay busy. As the water boiled, I thought about all the times I had sacrificed for Matthew. All the sleepless nights when he was a baby. All the times I had put his needs before my own. The summers working 2 jobs so I could pay for the music lessons he wanted. The countless times I had defended his poor decisions to others because he was my son, and that's what mothers did. And I thought about Vanessa, how she had entered our lives 5 years ago. From the beginning, something about her had bothered me. She wasn't openly cruel or rude, but there was a coldness in her eyes, a way of evaluating everything in terms of monetary value. I remembered the first time she visited my house, how she had walked through the rooms as if appraising the property, how she had asked how much the house was worth, how much was in my savings account, whether I had life insurance. My husband had noticed it too. One night, lying in bed, he told me, "Edith, there's something about that woman I don't like. I think she's only with Matthew for what he might inherit." I had defended her then. I said he was being paranoid, overly protective of our son. But he was right. My husband had always been an excellent judge of character, and I should have listened to him. After my husband died, Vanessa changed. She became bolder, more direct with her questions about money, more insistent that I should sell the house, move into something smaller, invest the proceeds. And Matthew, my own son, started repeating her words as if they were a team, as if I was a project they needed to solve together. My tea grew cold in the cup, untouched. The hours crawled by slowly. Every time I heard a car pass on the street, my body tensed, but it wasn't him. Not yet. At 4:30, my phone vibrated with a message from Matthew. "I'm 20 minutes away. Please, Mom, I need us to talk." I didn't reply. I simply stood up, smoothed my dress, and prepared myself. At 4:50, I heard the familiar engine sound. My car, my silver car, pulling into the driveway. I looked out the window. Matthew was behind the wheel. He looked pale, exhausted. Vanessa was not with him. Interesting. Perhaps he had dropped her off somewhere. Or perhaps she didn't want to face the consequences of her actions. Matthew turned off the engine and sat inside the car for a moment. From the window, I could see his profile. His head was in his hands. Then he grabbed something from the passenger seat, the manila envelope with the documents. He finally stepped out of the car and walked toward the door. Every step seemed weighted down, burdened by what he had done. He rang the doorbell. He didn't use his keys, perhaps out of respect, or perhaps out of fear. I waited a few seconds before opening. I wanted him to feel the uncertainty. When I finally opened the door, our eyes met. His were red. He had been crying. Good, I thought. Now he knows how it feels. "Mom," he began, his voice trembling. I raised my hand to stop him. "Come inside," I said in a cold voice. "Not out here." He nodded and entered. He was holding the envelope in one hand and my keys in the other. We walked in silence to the living room. I pointed to the sofa. "Sit." He obeyed like a scolded child. I sat in the armchair across from him, the same room where I had cried hours earlier. But now I was different. Now I was in control. Matthew placed the envelope and keys on the coffee table between us. "I read everything," he said finally. "Mom, I didn't know that you had prepared all this." I crossed my arms. "And what difference does that make, Matthew? Does the fact that you didn't know there would be consequences make what you did acceptable?" He shook his head quickly. No, of course not. What I did was wrong. Terribly wrong. I know that." "Then tell me," I said, leaning forward. "Tell me exactly what was wrong. I want to hear you say it." He swallowed hard. I took your car without permission. That was theft. And I said horrible things to you. Unforgivable things. That stuff about the nursing home. I don't know what I was thinking." "You weren't thinking," I interrupted. "Or rather, you were thinking that your mother was a foolish old woman you could manipulate, that you could treat like garbage." Matthew began crying openly now. "No, Mom, no. I love you. You're my mother. It's just that," Vanessa said. He stopped abruptly, realizing what he had just revealed. I said, leaning back in my chair. "So it was Vanessa's idea." "Of course. It's always Vanessa's idea, isn't it, Matthew? And what are you, a 42-year-old man who can't make his own decisions? Who lets his wife control him like a puppet?" Matthew's head snapped up. It's not like that, Mom. I make my own decisions. Then why did you do this? I asked him. Why did you come to my house, take my keys, tell me I didn't need my own car, that I should go to a nursing home? Those were your words, Matthew. They came from your mouth. Not Vanessa's. Yours. He wiped his tears with the back of his hand. You're right. You're completely right. I have no excuse. I can only tell you that I'm sorry, that I made a terrible mistake, and that it will never, ever happen again. I stood up and walked to the window. From there, I could see my silver car in the driveway, my symbol of freedom that I had almost lost. A mistake. I repeated without looking at him. You call this a mistake? Mistakes are accidental, Matthew. Tripping is a mistake. Forgetting an appointment is a mistake. But what you did was deliberate, planned. You came here with the intention of taking something that belonged to me. I turned to face him. And not just a car. You wanted to take my dignity, my independence, my right to live my own life. You wanted to lock me away in a nursing home like I was a piece of old furniture you wanted to discard. Mom, please, he begged. Let me make this right. Let me fix this. I'll do anything. Anything. I repeated. All right, then. Answer me this. Where's Vanessa now? Matthew looked down. I left her at her parents' house. When she read the documents with me, when she saw that you could have me arrested, that you had changed your will, she became very angry. She said I was an idiot, that I had ruined everything. Ah, I said, nodding. So she's not upset because you hurt me. She's upset because she lost a chance to inherit my money. Matthew didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. I walked back to my chair and sat down. I need you to understand something, Matthew. I raised you mostly on my own. Your father worked 16-hour shifts to give us a decent life, so it was me who fed you, who changed your diapers, who woke up in the middle of the night when you had nightmares. It was me who attended all your school plays, who helped you with your homework, who defended you when other kids bullied you. My voice broke slightly, but I continued. I worked 2 jobs a year so you could attend a good school, so you could have new clothes every season, so you would lack nothing. And when you wanted to study music, even though your father and I thought you should pursue something more practical, I supported you. I sold jewelry my mother had left me to pay for your classes. Because that's what mothers do. They sacrifice everything for their children. Matthew was sobbing now. I know, Mom. I know. And I've never thanked you enough. I've been a terrible son. And when your father died, I continued, when I was shattered, barely functioning, trying to understand how to keep living without the love of my life, where were you? You came to the funeral. You stayed for 2 days. Then you went back to your life. You left me alone in this empty house with my memories and my grief. That's not fair, he protested weakly. I had to work. I had responsibilities. We all have responsibilities, Matthew. But when the people you love need you, you find a way. I didn't expect you to abandon your life for me. I just expected a little compassion, a little consideration, an occasional phone call asking how I was doing. But no, I barely heard from you for 3 months, until yesterday, when I called to tell you about my new car. And instead of being happy for me, you came to steal it. He covered his face with his hands. I'm a monster, a complete monster. You're not a monster, I told him. You're a man who made terrible decisions. A man who allowed himself to be influenced by the wrong person. A man who forgot where he came from. But you can change if you truly want to. Matthew looked up. I do. I swear I want to change. Tell me what I need to do. First, I said, you need to decide what's more important to you, your wife or your mother. Because let me make something crystal clear. As long as you're with Vanessa, as long as she has an influence over you, I can't trust you. I can't have you in my life knowing that every word you say to me, every action you take, is filtered through her. You can't ask me that, Matthew said. She's my wife. I love her. You love her, I repeated. But do you love me? And yet you did this to me. So perhaps your concept of love is distorted, Matthew. Perhaps you need to reconsider what it truly means to love someone. Because love isn't taking. Love is giving. It's respecting. It's protecting. And you did none of those things today. I stood up and took the envelope from the table. These documents are still valid. The will remains in effect. The Grand Theft Auto report can be filed at any time within the next year. For now, I'm not going to do anything. But consider this a sword hanging over your head, a reminder that your actions have consequences. Matthew stood up as well. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for not calling the police. Thank you for giving me another chance. Don't thank me yet, I said, because this is your only chance. If you ever disrespect me again, if you ever treat me as less than a person, if you try to manipulate or control me in any way, I will use these documents. And I won't just cut you out of my will. I will hold you legally responsible for what you did today. He nodded repeatedly. I understand. I promise it won't happen again. There's one more thing. I added, I want you to go to therapy. Individual therapy, not couples counseling. You need to understand why you allowed this to happen. Why you let Vanessa convince you to treat your own mother this way. You need to work on yourself before you can be a good son again. I'll do it, he said. I'll find a therapist tomorrow. Good, I replied. And until you've attended at least 6 sessions, until I can see genuine change in you, our relationship will be limited. Occasional phone calls, nothing more. You are not welcome in this house, not until I can trust that you're not mentally cataloging every possession I own, calculating its worth. Matthew moved as if to embrace me. I took a step back. Not yet. I need time. I need to heal from what you did to me. And you need to show me with actions, not words, that you have changed. He dropped his arms to his sides. I understand. I'll wait as long as you need. I took my key from the table. These are mine. This car is mine. This house is mine. My life is mine. And nobody, do you hear me? Nobody is going to take any of that from me again. Matthew nodded. You're right. And I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to defend yourself from your own son. That should never have happened. I walked to the door and opened it. I think it's time for you to leave. Matthew walked past me. At the threshold, he stopped. Mom, I really do love you. You know that, right? I looked him in the eye. I want to believe you do. But love without respect isn't love, Matthew. It's just a pretty word people use to justify bad behavior. Show me respect. Show me you value who I am. And maybe, with time, we can rebuild what broke today. He left the house. I watched him walk to the street where a taxi was waiting, something he must have called during the drive back. Vanessa had obviously kept their car. Matthew got into the taxi, and before it pulled away, he looked at me one last time through the window. There was so much pain in his face, so much regret. Part of me wanted to run to him, to embrace him, to tell him everything was okay. Because that's what mothers do, right? They forgive. They always forgive. But I had forgiven too many things in my life. I had overlooked small slights, Vanessa's rude comments, Matthew's absence after his father died. All that forgiveness had only taught them they could continue treating me badly, that I would always be there absorbing it all, never complaining. But not anymore. This version of Edith was different. This version knew how to establish boundaries. I closed the door and leaned against it for a moment. My entire body was trembling, not from fear, not from sadness, but from pure adrenaline. I had just confronted my son. I had just set boundaries I never imagined I would need to set. Although every maternal fiber in my body screamed at me to be softer, I knew I had done the right thing. I walked to the kitchen and poured another glass of water. My hands were still shaking slightly. I glanced at the clock. It was barely 6 in the evening. It felt like days had passed since Matthew arrived that morning and took my keys, but it had only been hours. Hours that had changed everything. I picked up my phone and called Robert to tell him how the confrontation had gone. He answered immediately. Edith, tell me you're all right. I'm okay, I replied. Better than I expected. Actually, Matthew brought the car back. We talked. I set clear boundaries, and he accepted everything. Robert sighed with relief. I'm glad to hear it. You did exactly what you needed to do. It must have been difficult. It was, I admitted. but it was also necessary. And you know what's strange? I feel stronger now, like I finally reclaimed something I had lost long ago. That's called dignity, Robert said softly, and you deserve to feel that way. We chatted for a few more minutes. He assured me the documents remained valid, that I held all the legal power, and that if I ever needed anything at all, I just had to call him. Thank you, Robert, not just for the legal help, but for believing in me. Always, Edith. Always. After hanging up, I stood in the middle of the kitchen, uncertain what to do next. The house was silent, too silent. All day I had been so focused on the confrontation, on mentally preparing to face Matthew, that I hadn't considered what came afterward. Now, in that silence, reality began settling in. My son had betrayed me. That wasn't going to change. We might rebuild our relationship eventually if he genuinely put in the work, but it would never be the same. That innocence, that blind trust a mother has in her son, was shattered. Even though I had won this battle, even though I had successfully defended my dignity, I couldn't deny I had also lost something. I had lost the image I held of my family, the illusion that no matter what happened, my son would always take care of me. I sat at the kitchen table and, for the first time in hours, allowed tears to flow freely. But these tears were different. They weren't tears of humiliation or despair like the ones from that morning. They were tears of grief. I was mourning the relationship I thought I had with my son, the family I believed we were, the mother I used to be, the one who always forgave everything because she thought that was love. I cried for a long time. When I finally dried my tears, I felt strangely at peace, because I was also releasing something, unrealistic expectations, the need to be perfect, the belief that if I was just good enough, loving enough, sacrificial enough, my son would value me. Now I understood that wasn't my responsibility. I had done my job as a mother. I had raised him well. I had given him love, education, values. If he chose to ignore all that, if he chose to let Vanessa transform him into someone I didn't recognize, that was his decision, not my failure. I got up and washed my face. Then I went to my bedroom and pulled a box from the closet, one I had been avoiding since my husband died. It contained letters he had written to me over the years, birthdays, anniversaries, or sometimes just because. My husband wasn't very expressive verbally, but he wrote beautifully. In those letters, he always reminded me how strong I was, how capable, how valuable. I pulled one out randomly and read it. My dearest Edith, sometimes I see you doubt yourself, and it breaks my heart because I see what you don't see. I see a woman who can handle anything, who faces every problem with grace and determination, who never surrenders. You are stronger than you think, and the day you finally believe it too, the whole world will tremble. I love you today and always. I held the letter to my chest. I wish you were here, I whispered. I wish you could see me now. I think I finally understand what you meant. I think I'm finally that strong woman you always saw in me. I carefully returned the letter to the box. Someday I would read them all. But for now, that one was enough. The reminder I needed that I was capable, that I always had been. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No nightmares. I didn't wake up crying like so many other nights since my husband passed. I slept deeply, completely. When I woke the next morning, I felt renewed. The first rays of sun streamed through my window, and for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about the future. I got up, showered, dressed in comfortable clothes, and went outside. My silver car was still in the driveway, waiting for me. I looked at it fondly. It had been through so much in such a short time, purchased with hope, stolen with cruelty, recovered with justice. But there it was, gleaming in the morning sun, ready to take me wherever I wanted to go. I got in, adjusted the rearview mirror, and started the engine. The soft purr made me smile. I opened the glove compartment for a moment. The manila envelope wasn't there anymore. I had secured it in a safe place inside my house. But the glove compartment now held something different, a small photograph of my husband and me taken on our last anniversary. The two of us smiling, holding each other, happy. I had placed it there as a reminder that I had known true love, that I had been valued, and that I deserved to continue being valued. I pulled out of the driveway and drove with no specific destination. I just wanted to drive, to feel the freedom of going wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted. I drove through my neighborhood streets, then took the highway leading out of town. The landscape gradually changed. Houses gave way to trees, trees to open fields. And I kept driving with the windows cracked, feeling the wind on my face. After an hour, I arrived at the cemetery where my husband was buried. I hadn't planned to come here, but somehow my hands had turned the steering wheel in this direction without conscious thought, as if part of me knew I needed to be here, that I needed to tell him everything that had happened. I parked and walked to his grave. The headstone was simple but elegant, bearing his name, his dates, and a phrase I had chosen. He loved with all his heart and lived with all his soul. I knelt before it and ran my hand over the engraved letters. "Hello, love," I whispered. "I'm sorry I haven't visited sooner. It's been a difficult few days." There, kneeling before my husband's grave, I told him everything. I told him about the car, about Matthew, about Vanessa, about the betrayal, about the documents Robert helped me prepare, about the confrontation, about establishing boundaries. I talked and talked, and even though I know it sounds absurd to talk to a headstone, I swear I could feel his presence. I could sense his approval. "I did what you taught me," I told him finally. "I didn't let them walk all over me. I defended my dignity. And it hurts. It hurts so much because he's my son. But I also feel good. I feel strong. I feel like the woman you always said I was." Tears rolled down my cheeks, but this time they were quiet tears, tears of acceptance. I sat by the grave for almost an hour, simply being present, feeling the connection to the man who had been my partner for 40 years. When I finally stood to leave, I felt different, as if he had given me his blessing, as if he had told me it was okay to move forward, that it was okay to be strong, that it was okay to put my needs first for once in my life. I drove back home feeling lighter. But when I arrived, there was an unfamiliar car parked in my driveway, a red sedan, somewhat old but well-maintained. Then I saw who was sitting on my porch steps. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, was there waiting for me, and from the expression on her face, she had not come to apologize. I parked my car in the driveway and sat inside for a moment, preparing myself mentally. I hadn't expected this. I thought that after what happened with Matthew, Vanessa would stay away. Clearly, I had underestimated her audacity. I took a deep breath, grabbed my purse, and stepped out of the car. Vanessa stood up from the steps as I approached. She wore jeans and a coral-colored blouse. Her hair was perfectly styled as always, her makeup flawless. But something in her eyes, something cold and calculating, made me stop a few feet away. "Vanessa," I said in a neutral tone, "I wasn't expecting to see you here." "We need to talk," she replied, her voice tight and controlled. "About what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She crossed her arms. "About what you did to Matthew. About how you almost had him arrested over a simple misunderstanding. About how you changed your will to punish us for one mistake. A misunderstanding." I repeated slowly. "Is that what you call theft? A misunderstanding?" Vanessa scoffed. "Oh, please, Edith, here's your son. Family. It wasn't theft. He just borrowed the car. And you turned it into this enormous drama. You called a lawyer. You prepared legal documents. You threatened to call the police. All of that over a car." "It wasn't just about the car," I said, feeling anger begin simmering inside me. "It was about respect. It was about dignity. It was about my own son walking into my house, taking my keys without permission, and telling me I didn't need anything anymore, that I should go to a nursing home. Those were his words, not mine." Vanessa waved her hand dismissively, as if shooing away a fly. He was frustrated. He said things he didn't mean. We all do when we're stressed. "Oh," I said, taking a step toward her. "So when you're stressed, do you also tell your mother to go rot in a nursing home? Because if so, perhaps you should work on your stress management techniques." "Don't you dare judge me," Vanessa said, pointing a finger at me. "You don't know anything about my life, about our problems. Matthew and I are going through financial difficulties. We needed that car for the trip. My parents were going to help us with money, but we had to get there, and you selfishly refused us." I laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. Selfishly. I was selfish for not letting you steal my car. The car I bought with my own money. The car that represents my independence. Tell me, Vanessa, in what universe is it selfish to protect what belongs to you?